You gotta be kidding me. Oh, I guess not. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to what is usually the Joe and Joe weather show, but tonight Joe Cioffi is solo. So it's the Meteorologist Joe Cioffi show. And we're brought to you by our friends at Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, where they've got plenty of rock salt that is yet to be used. And pretty soon, I'm sure we're going to start to see our first rounds of winter weather. In the meantime, they've got the rock salt anywhere in the tri-state area, the New York City tri-state area and beyond, and the lowest prices. Also, all the great winter snowmelt products like Pelleto and Mag ice pellets and flakes, spreaders, snow blowers, shovels, everything you need to get you through the winter. So 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, 631-756-1125, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. So here I am. I'm feeling better now that I've had the right medications for the last 2 days. So I am coming along. My energy level is probably as good as it's been in the last 6 or 7 weeks. So we're all up to it here. Joe Rayo, I have no idea where he is. So he's supposed to be back tomorrow, sometime tomorrow. So I imagine he's somewhere in Santiago, Chile, making or getting the last leg of his flight home underway. So he wishes good travels. I don't think it's a good sign that I haven't heard from him, because I'm thinking that maybe he's run into a little bit of trouble along the way, but it's just speculation on my part. I'm just guessing here. He had a lot of trouble on the way down, so wouldn't be a big shock if he wound up having a lot of trouble on the way up. Also, today was probably the first day in a while where I was just I'm trying to just get to some sense of normalcy, publishing on my subscription site on Patreon, and doing my Weather in 5 video. And I figured this would be a good way to do a solo show tonight, and then we'll get back to normal when Joe gets here. So I'm going to say conservatively that he'll be back for sure on Sunday. Maybe an outside chance that he'll be back on Friday, but I think Sunday probably a good bet that we will see Mr. Rayo. Okay, we've got another crazy busy night, and with respect to severe weather. Okay, who's doing that? All right, hang on one second. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Oh, go away. All right, let me turn this. I love it that people call me in the middle of a show. Okay, and they know I'm doing a show. All right, let's get moving here. So we've got another severe weather outbreak here, another major severe weather outbreak. You would have told me that you would have had one day where you were going to wind up with a moderate risk of severe weather over somewhere in the middle of the country. I would have said I would have accepted it, considering what we've seen during the months of October and particularly in November. It wouldn't have been a big shock, but to see it twice and within a span of less than a week, that is, excuse me, that is to me rather remarkable. So we're living in some very interesting weather times. Let's put it that way. So I'm going to go right to Tornado HQ to take a look at what we've got with respect to severe weather and thunderstorm warnings. Just give me a little bit of slack here as I'm trying to switch the show and talk at the same time, which is not always an easy thing to do. All right, welcome to everybody on the chat board. Thanks for those of you watching the show tonight. It's most appreciated. And take a look at this. This is uh, from just a few minutes ago with respect to working severe thunderstorm warnings. We've got a whole bunch of them down in Kansas and then on up into southwestern Missouri here. I mean, that looks like at least half a dozen severe thunderstorm warnings. And then further north, there's another severe thunderstorm warning. And here we have, as we get into Iowa, and we're looking at 3 tornado warnings that are ongoing at the moment. So I'm just looking here, the latest in Iowa for counties of Hancock, Humboldt, Kossuth, Palo Alto, and Pocahontas. We have a severe thunderstorm producing capable of producing a tornado. So we have a tornado warning there. And 20 minutes ago, for Calhoun, Pocahontas, and Webster in Iowa, we have another. It was a severe thunderstorm that was capable of producing a tornado 8 miles east of Rockwell City. And at 5:27 minutes ago, a tornado warning was issued. Now, a tornado. This is an actual tornado producing storm. That's how they describe it. Versus a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located 2 miles west of Jefferson, moving northeast at 80 miles an hour. I mean, some of these thunderstorms are just rocket shipping up to the northeast. And this is in Boone, Calhoun, Greene, and Hamilton and Webster counties in Iowa. So that's just a sample of what we have going on at the moment. 5 minutes ago, so at 7:01 Eastern Time, 6:01 Central, we have a new severe thunderstorm watch that's been issued across what looks let's see, Arkansas, all the way down to Arkansas, Illinois, Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. There's Tornado Watch 565. That watch covers Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota, Missouri, and Wisconsin. And there are a whole bunch of other potential severe thunderstorm watches, potential tornado watches that may be going up. And you can see the profile here on SPC in terms of what they're looking at with regards to the risk zone. We'll take you on the bigger map here, and we can take a look at the tornado risk on tonight is 10%. Now, the tornado risk from the severe weather outbreak of a few days ago was 15%. 10%, excuse me, 10% is still very high. I mean, considering the time of year, we should be done with this kind of risk going on. But unfortunately, we do not have control over this. And I want to point out, by the way, in terms of some of the meteorology that we're dealing with, one of the things that I've noticed in the teleconnections a long time ago, and it almost always works, is when you have a negative PNA, okay, a negative Pacific North America index coupled, a negative PNA, and you couple that with a negative NAO, that often, as we do have right now, in fact, the NAO is crashing today and tonight and tomorrow. And whenever you have that combination, that's usually a good indicator that there's going to be a severe weather outbreak somewhere. And indeed, we are seeing a rather vicious one. I want you to take a look also at the HRRR model. And we're going to go to the Midwest view here of the HRRR. We'll bring it up, and it's very impressive in terms of how it picking up on this squall line. First of all, one of the things that I noticed earlier today, I don't ever remember seeing a gradient this tight. This is not a storm that's producing a lot of precipitation, particularly on the northwest side. You would have expected to see a rather large snow shield. that is moving that would be with something like this. But instead, you've got really, you just sort of have this arm of thunderstorms that's moving on up to the northeast as this low, a very deep low, by the way, a 984 low. This is the new HRRR model run. And look at how the orientation of that squall line, it's kind of a giant comma, that big arm that whips up and around. And you're seeing, at least to me, it looks like the strongest storms are going to be moving across Iowa and into northern Missouri, and of course also into southwestern Minnesota now as the low lifts on out to the northeast. There's not a whole lot of snow on the west side. I was reading some of the forecasts, and they were forecasting wind gusts of 60 to 70 miles an hour. I would have thought there would have been some blizzard warnings up, but they don't have any that when I last checked. We'll give it another check on the watches and warnings map from the Weather Service. Look at the extent, by the way. The gold is those are all high wind warnings that are posted for the whole state of Iowa, Wisconsin, northern Illinois, Nebraska, most of Kansas. You have wind advisories surrounding that. You can see there are some winter storm warnings up for north central Minnesota and winter weather advisories on either side. But again, I don't really see any blizzard warnings. And of course, you see some of the smaller little boxes of red there indicating some of the current tornado warnings. Let me just say really at this point, if you're watching this tonight on a replay, remember that the radars are all going to be dated. So you want to make sure you get your latest weather information with regard to severe weather. Please go to your local National Weather Service office, and you can find, so you can see the latest radars, watches, and warnings, and you can find that by going to weather.gov. So I'm going to bring up the larger radar loop. By the way, I'm on medication that tends to dry me out a little bit, which is why you're going to hear me get these little rounds of coughing. Here's our radar right now. Look at all these severe. Look, this is really crazy. Look at all these severe thunderstorm warnings up from Kansas on through Missouri, and then points further north. You can see where the tornadoes, the tornado warnings are concentrated up in central Iowa. I did see, by the way, earlier that Timothy Veltman posted that the Mayfield tornado was an EF4. Which is not, not a surprise, considering how much damage that occurred. It was going to be either a 3 or a 4. I mean, I might even have thought it might have been as possibility that it could have been as much as a 5, but certainly an EF4 is destructive enough. But looks like we've got probably a good dozen severe thunderstorm warnings right now, and maybe 2 or down to 3 tornado warnings at the moment, although I tend to think we'll probably wind up with a bit more. So a really wicked night of severe weather. Here's I'm just going to go back to the HRRR, and we'll put up the wind map. I'll put up the map with the 10-meter wind. And now it's only going to show sustained wind. So I think it's pretty fair to at least double the gust. So a large area of the yellows, that's 32 knots sustained or higher. So you've got a few little patches there of red, which would be about 35 to 40 knots or higher. So you're going to get every bit of sustained 30 to 50. I'm sure you're going to hear about gusts of 75, maybe even 100 miles an hour on the west side of this, because, I mean, the gradient here is so incredibly tight. It's really super tight. And I want to also bring up the NAM from of the 500 millibar, just so you can get a good flavor of what we're dealing with in terms of the shortwave in the upper atmosphere. When I looked at this morning, I thought, no wonder we've got a moderate risk of severe weather. But look at that curl in that shortwave with that really strong jet that's whipping up and around. I mean, we're talking jet winds at the 18,000 foot level of well in excess of 70 and 80 knots, and I even see some double wind barbs of 100 knots. That is a powerhouse shortwave that is lifting on up to the northeast. So there's no surprise here with regards to the fact that we are seeing the kind of weather that we're seeing across the upper Midwest. It is really um, um, I don't know. I find the fact that we're doing this in December just absolutely remarkable, and because you just don't. It's hard for me to even remember any kind of severe weather outbreak during the month of December. Now, look at it on the U.S. satellite loop. Look how well defined that shortwave is. By the way, I mean this is really a standout right in there. And it's only getting stronger as it's lifting up to the northeast. That's a ton of energy that is lifting northeastward. And by the way, there's not really you don't have there's not really much of any Gulf of Mexico flow. We're not. It's not as if we're seeing widespread shower and thunderstorm activity. Excuse me. Widespread shower and thunderstorm activity across the Gulf states. It's basically warm and basically on the dry side. And that warmer air, by the way, is going to be coming into the Northeast for tomorrow. We're dealing with a warm front tonight that is moving on through. And we'll come back to the radar, and you can see that the radar is showing some showers across New England, particularly in southeastern and southern New England, seeing some showers here. That is a warm front that is pushing on through. They're scattered across Pennsylvania. They're going to play themselves out, and then we're going to be in a different place tomorrow. Meanwhile, also out in the west, we're seeing heavy rain and heavy snow coming inland as another shortwave comes into the west, thanks to that western trough that we've been dealing with for the past many days, and has been responsible for sending that energy out to the east that produced the first big severe weather outbreak from a couple of days ago, and of course now tonight's severe weather outbreak. So just a crazy, crazy day with respect to what we're seeing here on the radar as far as severe weather is concerned. I just gave this a quick refresh, and I mean, one severe thunderstorm warning disappears and a new one appears. One tornado warning disappears, and then you'll get a new tornado warning that will appear. So this is all going to play through rather quickly. That low, you see the moisture field there that is showing up in Minnesota and on up into Canada. That is the narrow area of moisture with this system that is moving on to the northeast. And we are seeing anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to an inch, inch and a half. I'm gonna load up. Let's see. I'll try to load up the snowfall forecasts for this part of the country, where we've got all the where we've got the winter storm warnings and the winter weather advisories, and what's being produced by this particular storm. Remember, just going back to what I showed you on the satellite, this is not a big system in terms of the amount of geography, in terms of the amount of geographic coverage and the amount of moisture is being produced. It really isn't producing very much. So we'll let this map load a bit, and we'll come back to this in a second as the snow. Well, it's starting to load up now. Well, it likes to do it, and then it stops, and then it comes back. Yeah, I mean, you look at some of these snow amounts. It's not as if we're seeing widespread areas of a foot of snow being indicated, and we're talking about a few places that are going to wind up with 5 to 6 inches. Fargo it has 4. Minneapolis is kind of on the edge. I was reading their forecasts, and they weren't actually forecasting any accumulating snow there, so it's all to the north of Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're looking at some 2 to 3 inch amounts across much of South Dakota and North Dakota, and then the amounts tail off as we go further south. Also seeing some snows up in northern Wisconsin and on the upper peninsula of Michigan, up to coating to about an inch or so, with some higher amounts near the lake shores of Lake Superior. And out in the west, might as well give this a look-see. And of course, the Sierra Nevadas, it's been snowing there for days and days and days. And as we take a look at the snowfall forecast, which takes us through Saturday evening, we're seeing, this areas of 20 and 30 inch plus amounts running through the Sierra Nevadas, and also up to parts of the Cascades, although in the Sierra Nevadas, that's where we're seeing the heavier activity. So let's go back to, I just want to go back real quick to WPC in terms of the rainfall. Here's, by the way, the 21Z map, the surface map. There's your low, a 983 low in north central Nebraska. 1 million isobars around it. I mean, this is really a very wrapped up system. The warm front has pushed up all the way into southern Minnesota. I'm looking at some of these temperatures here, particularly in Missouri, where it's in the mid to upper 70s in some places. I mean, this is, and the dew points are all mostly upper 50s and low 60s. It's really, I mean, that is, the dew points aren't rocketing into the tropical 60s and low 70s, but that's more than compensated by the fact that you have this absolutely powerful shortwave trough that is swinging eastward and producing the severe weather that we're seeing. So let's swing on over now. We're going to focus our attention on where we're going to be going forward. Those of you who are on my weather platform on Patreon, I put up a long-range post yesterday talking about some of the skepticism that I kind of have toward what the long range is showing, depending on which models you look at. The new GFS, by the way, something's happened at CPC, because it should have been, the new GFS should be long done, and we only have it out to 144 hours. So something's going on where everything is kind of slowed down a bit. So we're going to go back one run and go to the 12Z run. I was hoping the 18Z would have resumed. I noticed that it had stopped well over an hour ago for some reason, and there's no message. Usually your tropical tidbits, you'll put up a message, but let's go look at the 12Z. We'll take a wide look at the upper air and see what's going on overall. So we're in this kind of a bizarre pattern where we have the NAO going negative. If you look from Greenland east, you have very high pressures building there. You also have a strong ridge off the southeast coast. You've got a trough swinging across central Canada. This is a couple of days from now. I'm already moved over to Saturday. I can move it back to let you know how we get there. And you see how here we are on Wednesday with the ridge here in the east and the strong shortwave that is coming out of the plains and producing tonight's big storm. Well, that eventually goes all up into the Canada, and it goes so far north of us that it really doesn't have any consequence here, other than the fact that we get into the warm air, and then a cold front will be moving on through. And then as we head into Friday's going to be, a cold front's going to come through here Thursday night that's not going to have much with it, and Friday is still going to be kind of a warmish day. Now, Friday night, we're going to see a cold surface high build in southeastern Canada and New England, and some of that cold air is probably going to bleed down at least to I-90, maybe a little bit further south than that, where we could see some accumulating snow, some light accumulating snow, maybe getting as far south as Route 84 or just north of Route 84. I don't think it gets much further south than that. So we've got rain coming for Saturday. Sunday will be the better of the 2 weekend days. Now, there is a blocking high that's building up over Greenland. You see it there. But next week, we're still kind of more in this sort of west to east flow. we haven't really established a good polar connection. We start to establish it toward the very end of next week. So that takes us almost to about Christmas Eve. So this is where we may see a colder shot coming down. One of the reasons for my skepticism is if you look at this, okay, so you've got a strong block south of the Aleutians. You've got looks like a strong block over Greenland. But as usual with these models, when you look at them in the long range, they're always, especially when it comes to these blocking highs, they're there on one run and then gone on the next. We still have higher than normal pressures pretty much all across the polar region. So that's a plus. That's going to give us a negative Arctic oscillation and bring down colder air. If the GFS is correct, then probably if the European, well, maybe a little less so with the European. It's a little hard to say with the European. But if you look at this with respect to the GFS, the upper air at the end of next week starts to look colder, and then we swing it around and we go through Christmas week, and it has a colder look. But I got to tell you, there's a few things about this that bother me. I mean, I look at this and I say, you know what? This actually does look like a colder look through much of the week that follows Christmas, particularly toward the end of the forecast period, where you've got a really strong flow that is setting up from the Arctic region into Canada. You've got a negative East Pacific oscillation with the high building up into Alaska and the cutoff low that's to the south of it in the Gulf of Alaska between there and Hawaii. But I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% sold on all of this for some reason. I'm not sure why. I think maybe it's because of the fact that the block in the Atlantic is not where I think it should be with respect to the GFS model. We do have the European, which at least through 10 days anyway, has strong blocks south of the Aleutians, a rather strong Greenland block into the Davis Strait. You've got a cold flow underneath it going across the United States. The troughing in the west would probably start sending energy across from west to east. But even here, I'm skeptical of the European because we've seen it go down the cold road many times in the last 6 weeks, and only to just toss it away and give up on it when reality sets in. So I'm really, I'm very cautiously guarded about what these models are showing as far as the as far as the longer term is concerned. So bear that in mind. Also, by the way, let me just point something out without naming names, okay? There is such a thing as ordinary cold, okay? And what I mean by that is where temperatures are just a handful of degrees below average. Not everything is, I have somebody, he might be watching, and I break his chops from time to time because he always likes to go down, let's call it the epic route. And I always remind him, and I would remind everybody here that things become epic after they happen or while they're happening. It's very rare that you could forecast an epic event. Ida might have been one of those rare instances in terms of the rainfall where there was enough there to lead you to forecast it ahead of time. So there is such a thing as just being ordinary. It doesn't have to go to severe cold. It doesn't have to go to endless snows, because if you think about it over the last, well, not just the last few years, but even in the snowiest winters, it's not. It's very rare to get a nonstop run of cold and snow. It just is. Even in the colder spots, when you look up in New England and up through the Great Lakes, they're certainly not getting it this year. In many of those places, it ain't even started yet. So, I know there's a tendency to put up what other people, what you're hearing, and I know that You like to listen around to see what other people are saying, but just bear that in mind. If everything is an epic event, you're going to be led down the trodden path probably 99 times out of 100, and you're going to be disappointed 99 times out of 100. Tom Contino, do I believe in the rubber band effect? I don't know what you're referring to, so if you could explain that, I'll try to answer your question. Okay, here's the old GFS from earlier today. You can see for tomorrow, we've got west-southwest isobars, so we'll have sunshine. I think we could see temperatures mid 60s to low 70s from southern New England down into the mid-Atlantic states. Then we take the cold front that comes through Thursday night into Friday, stall it out, and a wave comes out of there. You see it there in southern Indiana, moving into Ohio, and then into northern Virginia on the GFS. The NAM has it much further to the north. It actually has the lowest pressure on the northern end of the isobar, which would be up in western New York instead of down in Virginia. And then the GFS moves it out to the east. I would tend to think if the NAO is going negative that the GFS might have the more correct view, but I don't think it makes a difference in terms of the outcome as far as any snow. If we get snow on Saturday, it's going to be up in upstate New York, mainly north of I-90 and up into central and northern New England. Maybe you get a little bit of snow, sleet, and some freezing rain, perhaps south of I-90 down to along or just a little bit north of Route 84. And then we're going to turn colder and drier on Monday. Much of next week to me is a non-event. There's a low that's going to move off the southeast coast and go straight east, so we don't care about that. The shortwave and low that's dropping through the Great Lakes is not going to. I don't think it's going to catch it, and we'll just get a simple cold front coming through here along about Thursday, and that brings what the GFS at least advertised as a colder shot of air at the end of next week for Christmas Eve. So temperatures, if you believe this, would probably be a little bit below average for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And then another front that comes through on Sunday the 26th, followed by another round of colder air going into the last week of the month of December, but it's mostly dry, okay? The upper air pattern may turn favorable for it to get colder, but I just wonder whether it may wind up being cold and dry, and we're going to be sitting here, counting the days that we have cold air around until the pattern breaks, and then you finally get a weather system to move on through, and it goes in the wrong place, and it winds up being mostly rain again for the coastal plain. Maybe it's not for the inland areas, but maybe for the coastal plain. So I again, on the long range view of things, I remain very skeptical. And by the way, I know it's blasphemy to suggest otherwise. I don't care. So just so you know that, I don't care if I had a few messages from a couple of pros last night. They weren't nasty or anything, but I do have the right, after 41 years of experience, to disagree with what is being shown in front of me. So that's kind of how I see things at the moment. And I also have the right to change my mind. And the one thing you'll find here is always that if I do change my mind, I will give my reasons for changing my mind. And if it requires a mea culpa on my part, then you always will get that. Okay. I never hear mea culpas from a lot of people. That's the thing that kind of bothers me. They just put these sort of, they sort of put out these, and Joe Rayo, I know, would agree with me with this, but they hang these statements here about what's going to happen going forward with the weather, and it of course always goes to some epic outcome, and when it doesn't happen, you never hear a I was wrong. Okay. And by the way, I don't think when you do hear it, you'll hear something along the lines of, "I was wrong. Um, I would have been right if it wasn't for the fact that," and then fill in the blank. Okay, no, you were wrong. Okay, so just be a man, admit it, or be a woman and admit it, and move on, rather than trying to make yourself sound even sillier and digging yourself into a deeper hole by saying that, well, I would have been right if the low tracked this way, and if the high to the north had pushed down south, and the cold air would have, wedged in a bit more. No, you were wrong. So it would be refreshing to see that. It would be really refreshing to see that from people who post on social media with regards to weather, that when they're wrong, they admit it, they explain why they are wrong, take their mea culpa, and then move on from there. So anyway, excuse me. Coming up back to the chat board, Tom, I don't know if you put up what you mean by the rubber band effect, because I don't see it. Oh, here it is. The rubber band effect means the mild dull pattern will snap to cold and snowy because you can only stretch a rubber band to a certain length. Well, I'll say this. I've seen some seasons where you can stretch that rubber band all the way to the end of March, okay, before it snaps. And then when it snaps, it doesn't matter because it's the end of March. So, look, things are going to happen when they happen. I think what we need to look for in the coming weeks is the blocky signals that we have with respect to the NAO. That we're going to see where does the block in the Atlantic, or the blocky area in the Atlantic, set up? Does it set up east of Greenland? Does it set up over or west of Greenland? Also, I think even more important is the fact for the East Pacific Oscillation to keep it negative. It's definitely going to be negative virtually all of next week, so we know that. And I have often said I'd rather have the negative EPO, and everything else I'll take my chances with. The PNA needs to at least flatten out and go neutral. That would be nice to see. Right now it's negative, so that's not going to happen anytime soon, but it might happen toward the end of the forecast period. But those are the things that I would look for. And in the meantime, I remain skeptical over how this evolves over the next couple of weeks. I don't even know, Tom, what you mean by what it would take for me to get on the bandwagon. I don't get on bandwagons. I'm giving you my opinion. I really don't care what other people. I mean, those of you who have been here long enough know me, been on the show watching it long enough, know that I don't care what other people do or are saying. I don't read other people's forecasts. The only way I find out about them is because I might be on Facebook scrolling, and I will somebody else will post about it, or someone on the board here will post about it. You're right, Rick Rothmansky. Yeah, you'll never be right. Many of these meteorologists are not meteorologists. Behind the scenes people are doing the forecasts. Therefore, there'll never be an apology. Actually, even the behind the scenes people, at least they're connected to somebody who's doing their work. But we all understand and talked about the fact that the main reason why things are written the way they are, and I saw Timothy Veltman posted about this earlier, it's to gain, it's to get clicks on a website. That's all, or on their apps. That's all this is about. Nobody's going to click. Nobody's going to click on anything that says the weather is going to be nice for the next 7 days. It just doesn't. It just doesn't happen that way. It just doesn't. We live in a world where everything is driven to its natural Armageddon conclusion. And, I have a headache, therefore it must be a brain tumor. And that is just not it's a sad place to be. It's a sad place for the way the media goes and the way our world runs. But that's why we have this nice little enclave here, so that we could look at things in a very realistic fashion. And by the way, any of those forecasters, other people, there's always an open invite to come on this show. All you have to do is message me, and I've invited many people along the way, and I've rarely, if ever, get a response. So that's on that. Look, there's nothing I can really do. Okay, so now as far as my health is concerned, so I did not have an MRI. I had a CT scan, which I got last Thursday, and on Monday, because I was feeling horrible, I went to the emergency room, which is why you saw like minimal stuff on. I went to the emergency room on Monday, and they got my scan, which I got done last Thursday, and it revealed that among other that aside from the fact that I had the appendicitis and the appendix that was about to blow, I also had a very inflamed large intestine. So basically severe colitis, going for the entire from the large intestine down to the bowel. Now that's easily treated. There are two medications that that were prescribed to me. Cipro, and then one other medication. It's basically Cipro's like 10 cents a pill, and the other one's like 20 cents a pill. So we're talking about meds that are very, very common. And it's already, I started taking the medication 2 days ago, and I already feel 100% better. I mean, this is about as good as I have felt any time in the last 6 or more weeks. So we've seemed to have, found the issue that has kept me spiking fevers and not being able to go to the bathroom for the better part of 2 weeks. And by the way, I want to, big thanks and kudos to the two nurse practitioners that the one that found my appendicitis and the one that found my inflamed colon and large intestine. So thank you. It wasn't the doctors that found it. It was the nurse practitioners that found it. They knew from their own experience what was going on and where to look. And I can't thank them enough, because I still would be begging for medications were it not for the nurse practitioners that I had, and all the nurses that wound up taking care of me. So anyway, so that's pretty much it with respect to how I'm feeling. Every day, my improvement since Monday has been rather notable. My energy level is a lot higher. I don't really have any temperature of any kind. My sleeping is a little off. I seem to wake up in the middle of the night wide awake, but that being the case, it's the least of my worries, as long as everything else is starting to function. I actually had a bit of an appetite today. I must have had like 4 bowls of chicken soup and a couple of oatmeal cookies. So I was it was feeling good. I was feeling good. And it's funny because particularly over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I couldn't look at food without being any kind of food without being totally repulsed. That's a very, very odd feeling to look at food that you like and you enjoy, and you want nothing to do with it. In fact, I went into my refrigerator and I basically threw out 3/4 of what was in there, because just looking at it repulsed me. So today there were a few less things in there that repulsed me. So I'm starting to get a bit of an appetite back. So on that note, let's call it a night. And don't forget, that hopefully Joe Rayo will be back with us for the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Either he will be here on, I don't think tomorrow. I really don't. I think there's a chance that we could wind up seeing him on uh, Friday. But if not, then I would have to believe that we will see him on Sunday. So the Joe Cioffi Weather Show, also known as the Joe and Joe Weather Show, when the other Joe is here, Joe Rayo, is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town on anything you need to get you through this winter. And the website is omnitruevalue.com. So everybody have a great evening, and we will see. I'm going to try and do a show tomorrow as long as I keep improving. We'll do another show tomorrow, and we'll start it out at 7 o'clock Eastern time. All right, so we'll see you then. Good night, everybody.